One. Welcome to our August session of the 2023 Volunteer Engagement Series. I personally cannot believe that we only have 1 month left of the series this year. So for those of you who may be your first time on the series, we do it from January to September of every year because the fall is just beyond crazy for everyone. But my name is Sydney Shuttro, and I'm the Director of Volunteer Engagement at the Tennessee Commission on Aging and Disability. This series is one of my favorite parts of my role, and I have to thank you all again, like I do every month, for supporting me in this ongoing training opportunity. For anyone new to the series, we have all of our presentations from January 2020 posted on the Tennessee Commission on Aging and Disabilities YouTube channel. And by the end of the day tomorrow, we'll have this presentation posted as well, along with some follow-ups and an email with some resources. So I always want to do my typical disclaimer that these webinars are being recorded. So please be sure to keep information when we're talking about specific volunteers or clients or partners in the community, keep that confidential. Please be sure to put yourself on mute to reduce the background noise for our speaker. And now is also the time to turn off your cameras unless you want your face recorded. It's totally up to you. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please type those into the chat box and we'll address them as quickly as we can. Also, don't forget about our reactions functions that Teams has. So we can give our presenters some feedback throughout the presentation. So if you're excited about today's topic, please give me a hearts or a thumbs up so I know you all know where those reaction buttons are. Come on now. There we go. They're coming. Awesome. It's also important to remember that everything we talk about on these webinars is not a requirement for you to implement in your programs. These are simply best practices through research and experiences. However, if you do like what you hear and want to implement these strategies or suggestions in your program, please be sure to get the support of your supervisor or management before moving forward. Without further ado, I want to turn the presentation over to our speaker to introduce herself and start our discussion on rural volunteer recruitment. Everyone, please join me with the applause reaction in welcoming Marlene. Marlene, thank you so much for taking the time to share your experience and resources with our group today.
Sure. And I can't see the chat, so if something pops up, just if you can help me monitor that, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
But great. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for inviting me to share some of my personal ideas for rural recruitment. I have a big footprint. I have about 33 counties, and a lot of my counties are very rural. So I'll be sharing just some of my best practices that have worked for me. So once again, my name is Marlene Sweda, and I've been with the American Red Cross for about 4.5 years. And I recruit currently for 3 lines of service with the American Red Cross. And those would be disaster cycle services, our blood services, service to the armed forces. So that keeps me very, very busy with 33 counties. So before we get started, I believe that it's very important for recruiters when recruiting out in the community and talking to prospectives that it's very important to share with the individuals not only what you do and why you do it, but to also share your mission. When you share your mission, that kind of helps the prospective volunteer connect to your mission, and hopefully they can see themselves doing something that your mission entails. So I just want to go ahead and share the American Red Cross mission with you. The American Red Cross prevents and alleviates human suffering in the face of emergencies by mobilizing the power of our volunteers and the generosity of our donors. And if possible, if you can have your mission either on the back of your business card, maybe on some of your recruitment material, and hopefully have your mission on your website. That would help individuals know what your organization, what you do. So when it comes to rural recruitment, the big key is to keep it local. In rural areas, I do not have success posting. I've tried posting on virtual websites. I have better luck actually going out to communities and just talking and meeting some of the local patrons and some of the individuals that I am looking to recruit. So personally, some of the things that I do is I go to the areas and I stop in local coffee shops and I ask the manager if it's possible if I can hold an informational session to people in the community to come and learn not only the great work that the organization is doing in the community, but actually share how they can get involved if they're interested. So that works really well for me. And I usually will post it like, come and have a cup of coffee, learn a little bit about our organization and how you can get involved. And I would usually ask the manager if they have a website, they will post that date and time when I'm going to be there. So people who visit that establishment can see that and hopefully come on out and have a cup of coffee, learn and ask questions. And at the end, I always tell them in the beginning that there will be a raffle prize at the end. And that helps people to stick around because everybody wants to win a prize, right? So also local restaurants. Usually I've been lucky, local restaurants, they usually have a little area by their where people pay their ticket where you can leave business cards and sometimes they'll be nice enough to give your flyers away to individuals that are leaving. So I've been successful there as well. Food trucks. I have little recruitment cards that have their back-sided with two positions that I'm in need of. And usually when I go to a food truck, of course I buy something and I ask them if they would mind if I can leave some cards, recruitment cards, if they can pass them out or people could feel free to take them. And usually they say yes. Now, if they throw those cards away after I leave, I wouldn't know that, but at least I'm able to leave some cards there. Also, another good idea is if you stop into some pizza places that have local delivery, ask them if you can leave some flyers and they can put them on the pizza box. So when that pizza goes to someone's home for delivery, they will have that flyer in their home, they'll see it, and you just never know who's going to be interested and give you a call, maybe check out the website. Another tool that I have is bookmarkers. Same thing, two-sided bookmarkers with two different volunteer opportunities that I am in need of. Take those to local libraries and people will usually pick up a bookmarker on their way out. And that's something that will be in the book, something that they'll see every time they open up that book. So that is another opportunity that you can do and that has been successful for me. And the way I'm able to track where I'm getting these volunteers from, I usually have a QR code that somebody can scan and they can scan it. And if they come into our system and create a volunteer profile, I will know where they saw that volunteer ad. So that's very helpful too. If you know anyone who is involved with the Rotary, give them a call and ask them if you can get on a speaker, if you can be a speaker for one of their meetings. They usually invite speakers. I believe it's once a month, and you can see if you can get on their calendar. So that's a great way as well. Chamber of Commerce, same. You can call them up and see if they need a speaker, if they have an opening somewhere in their calendar, and you can go in and not only share with local business owners, but you can also log on to the Chamber website after your presentation, and then maybe you can send something to those business owners just saying, you know, thank you for coming to the Chamber meeting. If anyone has any further questions, you can send a business card to their place of business. And especially with chambers, if somebody who is a chamber member, if they're not interested in volunteering, you can always ask them if they can take some flyers and pass them out to their neighbors or their friends or their relatives, because you just never know who's looking for a volunteer opportunity, especially in rural communities. Co-ops. I've left some recruitment material at co-ops at the register just for people to take. But of course, you always want to ask to be sure if you can leave some information. And most of the time, everyone's been pretty gracious saying yes. So that is an opportunity for you as well. I call up usually faith-based organizations, and not to do a presentation, but if I can send them some of our pamphlets, and if they can put them in their weekly bulletins that they pass out at their church services and just insert it. So this way it's easy because there's no printing involved for you to get into their, because I know usually if you want to print something in a bulletin, that usually takes weeks ahead of time to get on their schedule. So I just ask if I can send them some information and if they can just put it in their weekly handout for their services. And that's worked really well. And sometimes I've even had, after that, I've had some organizations call me and ask if I would come and do a presentation. So that is a win there as well. So, and last but not least, if you have, oops, I went too quickly. If you have where you go present and you come to a roadblock where somebody is not computer savvy. So our organization, we're strictly web-based, where individuals, they can go in and sign up on the internet through our website to volunteer. If you come across individuals that aren't computer savvy, go ahead and invite them to the office and help them sign up, or better yet, take a laptop if you have access to a laptop, and then just let them know after your presentation that you will stick around if anybody has any further questions or wants to sign up, and you can just sign them up right there. So that has been very helpful when individuals aren't comfortable using a laptop. So when it comes to recruiting, the first thing, it's very important when you do these presentations or you're talking to somebody about a volunteer role that you're trying to fill, have a brief job description for them, because this will help them, not only giving them something, but they can see what that volunteer role entails, and they can make an assessment if that's something that they can do. Um, on that job description, you want to have the volunteer title. Um, you want to have a schedule. When I do job descriptions, I have not only a brief job description, but I have the title of the volunteer role, the schedule. So if it's, Mondays or if it's ongoing, and you also want to include the time commitment. So at the Red Cross, we like to have individuals at least stay for a minimum of 3 months, because I want to make sure that they're able to commit to that on certain roles, if that is one of the requirements. Any training, you want to let them know on that job description if there's any training, if it's virtual, if it's in the classroom, days and times, because what you want to do is you want to take out the no's right in the beginning. So not only if they come through and then they get to a certain point of that volunteer role, and then when you bring up the training, it's like, okay, well, we have training, Monday afternoon at this time. Well, if they're not available, that will kind of help weed out individuals that aren't able to commit to certain times. So any training, time commitment, you want to have that on your job description. And of course, these are just suggestions, but this is what I do. And it's been very helpful because it gives them, the information, but it's not overwhelming them. It just gives them all of the necessary details that somebody might want to know, or at least that I would want to know if I was looking to volunteer with an organization. Also, it's helpful, any requirements, if they have to pick up boxes, if it's a certain weight. One of our volunteer roles, we have a limit to pick up a box that's 25 pounds. So anything like that, you want to put that on a job description. If there's any walking, sitting, lifting, that just helps to give that volunteer all the information they need. And also, if you follow up with an email thanking them for considering your organization to volunteer with, follow up with an email. And if you have, I usually send a short video. We have short videos that have, they highlight the certain volunteer role, and I usually send that to them. And not only do you have the email to send them that, but you have an email to follow up with them at a later time to see if they have any questions or if they're still interested. So, um, with that, I know that was very short, but I wanted to have some time for discussion. And also, if anyone else has any suggestions on what is working for them for their rural recruitment, we can share that now. I know it was short and sweet, but like I said, I wanted to have time for discussions.
Yeah,
So I will stop sharing if that's okay.
sure.
All
Um,
righty.
so I definitely have a couple questions just from
Sure.
some of your suggestions.
Yes.
Would you be willing to share your recruitment card and your bookmarks as examples to our group so we kind of have a starting point on what those may look like?
Sure, I can do that. Would you like me to share those with you and then they can go out via email, or would you
Yeah,
like me
that
to
would,
share them now if I can?
if you can find them, I would love for you to be able to show us now, as well as I'm going to be
Okay.
greedy and just ask for all of it.
All righty. Let me go ahead, and if anyone has any questions, why don't we take some questions and I will go ahead and go off camera and, well, I guess I won't go off camera. I'm just going to be looking intently at my screen at you. So maybe I will go off camera while I'm looking.
Sure, not a problem. We also had a comment come into the chat box that you were very informative, and we have a member who'd also like to see the bookmarks and the flyers and the push cards. So thank you for being willing to share those resources via email and also as you're searching for them now. Um, can I ask you a question while you're looking for that, or do you need to focus?
No, go ahead. You can ask me a
Okay.
question.
Awesome. I love the idea of QR codes. We just created a new volunteer recruitment flyer here at our agency. And
Mhm.
I was wondering if you could either share with us where you get your QR codes and if there's any cost associated. I think that's kind of the new way of getting people especially attracted to your website, like you were talking about there at the beginning.
Right. So our QR codes, so we have a database where we enter our daily tracking, what we do, where we went, who we talked to. It also not only tracks, like say an organization, we will call those a channel. And then we have the activity. Did we do a presentation? And then we also have leads. Like if somebody comes in, we'll put their name, their information. So on our database, it's really great because in the activity section, what happens is when you enter that activity, presentation at Rotary Club, Nashville, Tennessee, that when you save it, our database, it actually creates a QR code and it will also include a link. So if somebody is not comfortable with a QR code to scan on their phone, it will also include a link where they can click on it and it'll take them to that site. Um, so that is internal. Um, I don't know where where you can get QR codes, but I think there's probably an app. I'm not sure.
Okay, no, not a problem. That's really
Okay.
good information to know that you have it an internal data system,
Mhm.
which is wonderful. I know a few of us on the call have probably used QR codes. I can work with our graphic person to see where he pulled the QR code that we're going to use. Is
Mhm.
anyone interested in QR codes? Just kind of getting a poll from that. Get your QR codes from Bitly. Okay, awesome. So we do have some free resources. Yay.
Yay.
Um, And I know I'm taking up a lot of so everybody else ask questions as well. I don't want to take up all the
Yeah,
time.
go ahead and ask questions. I'm just looking for some flyers and recruitment cards that just have my information, because I do have recruitment. Oh, that was another thing I didn't share. If you have a volunteer that's in a rural area, because I know I think in some of my rural communities, I might have like one volunteer. So they're always out in the community. So I provide them with recruitment material. So whenever they're out and about, they can actually be someplace where I can't be. So they have recruitment cards, they have bookmarkers that they can go refill them in a library, or just anybody they meet. So if you have volunteers that are in rural communities, have them be your volunteer partner to help recruit, because they're there every day.
Excellent. I was going to also ask if you use current volunteers as volunteer ambassadors to get other volunteers. So that basically goes along right
Mhm.
there with what you said.
We do. We have a friends and family. So if a current volunteer will refer somebody, whether it's a friend, family, they fill out a form. So we can have a way of tracking it. And then after a volunteer comes through, I believe after they do so many hours, the volunteer who did the referral, they'll get some swag, and everybody likes their organization swag, right?
Hmm.
And it's just little, it could be they're not like expensive items, because we're a nonprofit. We don't have all kinds of money for swag. So they're just little things, whether it's a pin, if it's what do they call those phone things that you put behind your phone to help hold your phone up? I forget what they're called.
I know
Phone
exactly
poppers?
yeah,
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah, and it has that has the organization's logo on it. So just little things like that. Little things really, really go a long way.
For sure. Another idea I love I loved all of your ideas. So not one more than the other, but your coffee shop idea, I've always just kind of put the flyers on the cork board and then kind of left. And I think some of us have like dropped off flyers and then left. So
Right.
when you schedule come have a cup of coffee with me and learn about the Red Cross, are
Mhm.
there have you found better times during the day to do that to recruit volunteers than others?
Yes, usually what I will do, I usually will ask the coffee shop, when is I don't want to go when it's the busiest time, because sometimes people want to just go and relax and have a cup of coffee. So I usually will ask the manager, do you have a better time that you'd like me to stop in and do a presentation? So what works really well is coming in when it's the least busiest time, because that coffee shop, they are more apt to advertise on their website to get people to come in to the coffee shop and kind of increase, the sales and people in their coffee shop during a slower time. So that works really well, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to go when it's a really busy time, and maybe some people don't want to hear about your organization. They just want to go there and chat with their friend and have coffee. So I usually ask, when is your least busy time? And then they usually advertise, and it's worked really well. Um, I usually would have maybe, I think probably the most I had at a coffee shop, I call it coffee talk, probably a dozen people at one time. And, if you make it really fun and also include some trivia about your organization, that makes it fun too. Because I like trivia, and people that come, they usually kind of get involved. And that's kind of like an icebreaker too.
Absolutely. And
Mhm.
that was an interesting perspective because I definitely thought, well, yeah, go during the busiest time. You want to reach the most amount of people, but that's just going to cause so much stress on the staff. And like you said, the individuals are like, just leave me, this is my coffee time. Like,
Right,
leave me be.
right. Right. And what you want to do too, what I did too is you go on the local, like every community has like a hip Facebook page. So you go on like a local community Facebook page and you look and see what coffee shops are advertising. their business on that local website. And then you look at the pictures and you want to make sure there's room where people could sit. And then you call up the manager and ask them, and they will usually share that you are going to be there at a particular time.
Another interesting thing that you mentioned that, you said you had a dozen people was kind of the big group that you've had. And I know a
Mhm.
lot of us don't think of that as a whole lot of people. But when you're looking at rural counties in particular, and compared to the number of people, I mean, of course, you can get 50 to 100 in a metro area, but really 10 to 15 people in a rural county is a really good recruitment event.
Yes, and the thing you have to remember is rural counties, uh, pretty much everybody knows everybody. So they're going to share, well, hey, I was at, the local coffee shop and, so and so organization was there. And, they'll share if they learn something that they didn't know about your organization, they will share that with their friends, their families, their neighbors. So that goes a long way. And then you can provide them with information. You could provide them with business cards, um, flyers, if you can ask them if they can post in their business or give to a neighbor. That is huge.
Absolutely. And the last um, strategy that you talked about that I never thought of in a million years was the pizza boxes. I
Yes.
think that is genius, especially maybe not the big chains like the Domino's and the Pizza Huts, but almost every local community has their local mom and pop pizza shop. Or if it's not a pizza shop, it's um, burgers or something
Mhm.
that's really, like you said, keep it local, keep it to the people who were born and raised there who want to give back to their community. I just thought that
Exactly.
was like, that blew my mind.
Yes, because how else are you going to get into their homes?
Exactly. We're always trying to think, okay, let's do the mailers. And mailers are great. We just had a comment before we got started that someone just finished a mailer in their a few counties in their area, but that's just such a unique way to get the
Right.
information out.
Right. And another recruitment material that I have if I do presentations, we have what we call recruitment postcards. They're postcard size, and you could pre-address them. And, if you have a budget to buy stamps, I mean, postcard stamps, I don't know how much they are now, but I don't think they're as much as a regular mailer. You could pre-postage that, put your return address, and on the other side, I don't know if I have one here, but on the other side, it has our lines of service and some of the volunteer roles. And what they do is they check the box, and all they have to do is provide their name and an email address, and they can just pop that in the mailbox. Or when you're doing a presentation, if you don't want to self-postage it, if you have something to give away as a raffle, they can fill out that little postcard and then drop it in a box. And then at the end, you can pull the postcard and that person could win, a raffle prize if, whatever it is. It could even be a bag of candy. It doesn't have to be anything big, but you want to have a way where you can follow up with somebody that stopped at your booth or your table or wherever.
Absolutely. We were just talking in our CVA study group, and I'm going to steal a quote from Jared. And Jared, you
Mhm.
can make sure that my quote's correct. But if you don't have that contact information, you're never going to get a volunteer. That's the number one thing you need to get is some way to make a touch to that volunteer and get them the information and follow up and really get them more involved and engaged.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what you want to do. You want to follow up. And here's the nice thing too. If you keep track of all the people that you talk to, and then if you go in later and see that they're not in your database, if there's something going on in your organization, like say you're doing a weekend volunteer project, you can, and if you don't need them to have a background check, if it's just a couple of hours, you can always send them something and say, hey, come on out and join us. We're going to be doing this in the community. If you're, be picking up trash or something like that, you can always invite those possible perspective. And then if they make a connection with some of your volunteers, then maybe they might want to join, because basically that's what volunteers are looking for. Is they're looking not only a way to give back, but they're looking for a way to connect with individuals who uh, want to do the same thing they want to do. It's
Yeah,
all
and
about connections.
absolutely. And it's a great introduction to the organization. Yeah, you're picking up trash, but hey, next week we have this, and we just had a disaster here, and we need these things. And it's also a good
Mhm.
way to recruit for future events and needs in the community that you have.
Right. That's right. Okay, so I have quite a few volunteer partners. So some of my recruitment cards, um, they have their information, and I know we're video recording it, and I don't, I don't want to just like openly share somebody's email and phone number that is not on here. So I think I might have to email you some stuff with my information that you can share. Would that be too much trouble?
No, not at all. So what
Okay.
we'll do is we'll do a couple more Q&A and then I'll stop the recording so that way it's not shared. And then for anyone who's on the call who wants to kind of see what you'll be able to kind of share that without it being recorded,
Okay.
if you're okay with that.
Mhm.
And it'll make people stay on the webinar longer. Trapped you guys. All right. Anyone have any other? I know I've been taking up a lot of the time of the Q&A, but I want to open it up for anyone else who has questions. I have a couple updates I want to share with the group,
Okay.
but I want to give everyone the opportunity to ask their questions or share their feedback or their volunteer recruitment tips that they have for rural areas. You can unmute yourself. You can type it in the chat box. Totally up to you. Quiet group today. All right, I'm going to turn my camera on so y'all can see me. There I am. Hi. All right, so while you all are thinking of your questions, because I know you have a lot of them, don't be shy. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Okay. To give you all just a couple quick program updates. Hopefully y'all can see my screen. All right. It's not working. Great. This is a lovely start. So we're going to have to do it this way, which I know is not ideal. All right. So I sent everyone, when I sent the reminder email, I sent some information about the Governor's Volunteer Star Awards. This happens every year through Volunteer Tennessee. Every county has a representative. Some counties have the same representative or coordinator for the GVS awards. But you nominate your volunteer to be recognized by the governor at the annual Volunteer Tennessee Conference, which is going to be February 18th this year. That's the day of the ceremony, and then the conference is usually the next few days. It will be in Franklin, which is here in Middle Tennessee, and there's volunteer awards for all 95 counties. So this is not one volunteer to represent the entire state. This is one volunteer to represent Murray County and Perry County and Warren County. So if you have a volunteer that you think is amazing, and I know you do, because all of our volunteers are amazing, I encourage you, I'm going to send this out in the follow-up, to click that link down there and nominate your volunteer or volunteers to be able to be recognized. We've had a lot of volunteers in the past through our aging network, through a lot of our different programs, be recognized as a Governor Volunteer Star. So we want to keep that tradition going. I also wanted to let you all know in the email that I sent, we do have a quick date change for our final webinar next month. So usually the webinar is the third Thursday. Next month, we need to push that back a week just for some scheduling issues that have come up. So I've changed everything, I'm hoping, in our registration system. If not, please let me know. But our final webinar of 2023, which is crazy to say because I don't think this year should have gone by as quickly as it did, is going to be Thursday, September 21st, same time, same place virtually. And we're going to talk about other tasks required, which is a very unique presentation that Jared, who we heard from a few months ago, is developing, and I've seen some of his notes, and man, is it relatable. Relatable to the point where our focus is volunteers, but gosh, do we have so many other things to do. Um, and he's got a lot of really great tips and tricks and strategies to not feel overwhelmed with all of the things that we have going on in our job roles. So I hope you all can join us next month, September 21st at 2 o'clock. And again, of course, you know me, I'll send you all sorts of emails and reminders and updates until you guys tell me to stop. And as always, please feel free to contact me anytime. Happy to help. Marlene, thank you again so much for all of your information. Once I get your resources, I'll be sure to share it with the group. So last call for questions, comments. We've had a couple of things come into the chat box here, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Let's see here. All right, can these volunteers? Oh, go ahead.
Hey, Sydney, this is Jared. I've got one comment. The coffee shop trick works at senior centers as well. So the more rural the senior center, the more likely everybody knows everybody and they've known everybody forever. And whenever you set up a table to chat with them, they're just going to come give you polite conversation. But if you talk to the senior center coordinator, they'll promote that you're coming out to speak about volunteerism and volunteer opportunities and your organization, and they'll gather a crowd because they're regularly having things like lunch and learns or guest speakers. So sometimes we'll show up to a senior center, we've given them plenty of advance notice, and they're like, oh yeah, we set you up in a meeting room because there's 3 people lined up to talk to you already. And so even if 3 or 12 sounds like a small crowd, if 100% of them are interested, that's a game changer. I'll go table somewhere and talk to 100 people and I get 0 applications. So, having 3 people who already know upfront that they want to help, that's a good recruitment thing.
Absolutely.
You're here. We had a question come in, I believe, about the Governor Star Awards. Can these volunteers be volunteering across counties, or they need to be active in just one county? The volunteers, to my understanding, can be active across multiple counties, but the county that you will likely apply for them to be the Governor Volunteer Star for is the county of their residence. So that way it doesn't kind of confuse the nominating committee of, I'm just going to use Rebecca as an example because it was her question. Rebecca is a great volunteer in Davidson and Rutherford County. So if Rebecca lives in Davidson County, I would limit her nomination to just that county of her residence. We have experience recruiting in a small group is always the best forum. So I think that's a big takeaway from the presentation today. Lots of great info, thanks. Yes, members at the Senior Center know everywhere and where to go. So Marlene, if you haven't hit up a senior center, we got a new one to add up to your list. All right, last call for questions. Feel free to unmute yourself. And if not, Marlene, again, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. I'm going to stop the recording so that way Marlene can share some information with us. See, those of you who are listening on YouTube, don't you wish you would have came and talked to us live? But we'll see you all next month. Marlene, thank you so much again. We appreciate you.
Sure. My pleasure.